This morning, Robert Glennon spoke about water shortages. And it's a very relevant topic because California is going through a drought and a lot of people are paying attention. However, if he gave the lecture 10 years ago, a lot of people would have thought this is not worth the time because this isn't a real issue. It's a topic that I read about a lot that I find very disturbing, but it's in the news constantly, but it still fortunately hasn't become a major news story, and that would be the topic of antibiotic-resistant bacteria. Does your work with soil, with seeds, with gut bacteria have anything to say about antibiotic-resistant bacteria? Is there anything that you want to say about that?
Well, I did write an article about the study that was done in China where antibiotic-resistant marker bacteria, this is recombinant bacteria now, and we're not talking about bacteria that's the runoff, the antibiotic-resistant bacteria that is in runoff from farms, because that's been one of the greatest sources, I believe, of antibiotic resistance is its overuse in agriculture. But in this case, there were 6 rivers in China that had recombinant DNA, the plasmid vectors that are used in genetically engineered organisms. They use antibiotic-resistant markers to create genetically modified organisms. And those antibiotic-resistant markers are in the rivers. If you don't understand that, I hope you will explain how the mechanism of that works. I'm not a scientist, but I was very much alarmed by this because the more we're overusing anything, including genetically modified organisms and getting them out there, the more we're affecting, in very unpredictable ways, the life forms on the earth. And so in these articles, they said they're expanding it, and now that it's in the river, so it's in the drinking water, so it's, it's really much, it gets spread out all over. The antibiotic resistance that we're finding now is probably the #1 health problem in the world. Some people have said that. I read one article that said that, was it 15,000 or 25,000 people die a year in Europe from antibiotic resistant, from diseases that are antibiotic resistant. So the resistance to antibiotics, we're losing this really powerful tool that we've had over the last 60 years. I wouldn't be here. I got pneumonia when I was 6, and I hate to tell you, but that was just about when the antibiotics were beginning. And penicillin saved my life. So I'm not against the use of antibiotics, but it's the overuse in agriculture to get animals fat, to deal with the problems of overcrowding. These are practices that could be changed. You don't need to, and you don't need to cure the problem by curing the diseases that the problem causes, if that makes sense. The other thing I wanted to say about agricultural biotechnology, again, I've always said that this is an invention in search of a necessity, because it doesn't. You can solve the problem. You don't need to treat it with this particular technological solution. And one of them was they were growing. I wrote an article for World Watch on rice that was being grown in Northern California under the Pacific Flyway, where all the wonderful birds in their migrations go back and forth. We're talking millions of birds go by. They were growing rice, they were growing rice with human genes in it. And the human genes that they used were from tear ducts and breast milk because those are antimicrobial. So they took those antimicrobial genes from those 2 sources, put them in the rice, and they were growing them out in the open air. So the birds were able, and why were they doing that? Because they wanted that rice to have that antimicrobial property so they could put it into the feed for the overcrowded poultry industry to solve the pathogens in that. So they didn't ever consider not having overcrowded poultry, right? So there you go. We done? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, we're done.
No, please. Would you explain how antibiotic resistance works, even in the
Well,
gut?
the bacteria, somebody said just today that I guess it was Joel Furman was saying that the life cycle of some bacteria is 6 hours, or that they start doubling in 6 hours. That seemed awfully fast to me, but they do grow fast. If you think about an infection that you've had and it's spreading through your body, And it spreads because of an increasing number of bacteria, not one bacteria racing around making every organ sick. It's growing in number and spreading. And so you think about how fast they grow and that they can adapt quickly and that they share genetic information with each other. I think David was talking about that this morning. And we hear all this talk, every now and then it crops up about bird flu. And they say, well, bird flu is, it's in the animal kingdom and it's not in humans. But if there would be just a little genetic change. And so then we are growing rice with human genes in them that is going to be eaten by birds.
Right.
And so this exchange of genetic material is supposed to happen in some situations and not in others. And I don't fully understand that. But the bacteria just need a period of time exposed to any block to them, and they will learn a way around it. And so there's that problem. And then the C. diff problem. How many people in the room understand what C. diff is? Well, C. diff is the name of a bacteria, Clostridia difficile. And it's Dr. Furman, or was it you, David, that showed a picture of a mix of bacteria, and there's a little orange C. diff here, and there was one over there, and there was a C of a variety, diversity of bacteria. And then when someone gets an antibiotic, particularly clindamycin, it'll kill off 25, 30, 40% of those bacteria, and C. diff is just waiting to grow. One of the suppressors of bad bacteria is good bacteria. And bad bacteria are not easily killed. And good bacteria die with a whiff of antibiotics. So what is suppressing the bad is very sensitive and vulnerable and needs to be there in great diversity. So if one is gone, another takes over faster than C. diff can grow. But when C. diff overgrows, it secretes a toxin that can make the bowel so sick that the people have to have a colectomy, take out the entire colon, throw it away, in order to save them. Now we know all we need to do is give them a stool transplant from a relative in the same house that they live in. And you were saying is maybe 90% effective, maybe 99% effective. So fecal transplants are being researched frantically now because if you could make them in the pleasant pill, they will be used to correct the flora in our guts so that we don't have the one that supports Parkinson's, or we don't have the one that supports lupus, or we don't have the ones that support Crohn's. So this is an industry that's coming. This pharmaceutical industry is salivating over feces, over bacteria. And I have a great cartoon of a dog. Dogs have strange behaviors. Yes. Some of them in the wintertime are looking not for icicles, but for poopsicles. I don't know if you've ever noticed that. So this dog is smelling this little pile of stool and is saying, I smell firmicutes and bacteroides. Think I'll take the cure. And that's what we're coming to. But the problem of bacterial resistance is that they know how to survive. And we have to learn to work with them, not against them.
Right.